A man, ridiculed for his dead-end job and his seemingly worthless inheritance, stumbles upon a secret that changes everything. What started as a joke became a fight for survival, family, and redemption. Get ready for a story that proves fortune favors the overlooked. Before we dive in, hit subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications. Stories like this remind us that miracles hide in the most unexpected places. The inheritance nobody wanted. The fluorescent lights of Rustboro High buzz like angry wasps as Ethan Cole pushed his mop across the cafeteria floor for what felt like the 1,000th time. The scent of stale grease and industrial cleaner clung to his worn-out janitor's uniform, a second skin he couldn't escape. At 42, his back ached in ways it never had before, and his hands, rough from years of scrubbing and scraping, bore the map of a life spent cleaning up other people's messes. He wiped his forehead with the back of his sleeve and glanced at the clock. 11:47 p.m. 13 more minutes until his shift ended. 13 more minutes until he could retreat to his trailer on the edge of town, where the only company he kept was the static hum of old radios he tinkered with, broken things he could actually fix. The laughter from the teacher's lounge cut through the silence. Ethan didn't need to hear the words to know they were laughing at him. Again. "Hey, Ethan." Dave's voice boomed down the hallway, dripping with that same mocking tone he'd used for the past decade. "You miss a spot, Chief." Ethan didn't look up. He just kept mopping, his jaw tight. Dave, the school's head custodian, a title he wore like a crown, leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "You hear about the janitor who won the lottery?" "Yeah, me neither." The other teachers chuckled. Ethan's grip on the mop handle tightened, but he said nothing. Words never changed anything. When the final bell of his shift rang, he clocked out without a word, stepped into the biting Ohio night, and let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The letter was waiting for him when he got home, propped against the door like an afterthought. Official looking, with a return address he didn't recognize. Inside, his daughter, Lily, sat at their cramped kitchen table, earbuds in, scrolling through her phone. She barely glanced up when he entered. At 16, she had perfected the art pretending he didn't exist. Ethan tore open the envelope, his eyes scanning the legal jargon, until one phrase jumped out. "As the sole surviving relative of Jack Cole, you are hereby bequeathed the property located at 3407 Mill Creek Storage Lot, Rustboro, Ohio." He blinked. His Uncle Jack, the man who disappeared from family gatherings years ago, the one they'd all whisper about like a ghost, was dead, and for some reason, he'd left Ethan's storage lot. Lily finally looked up. "What's that?" Ethan handed her the letter. She skimmed it, then snorted. "Great. More junk to deal with." The next morning, Ethan drove to the lot, his beat-up truck rattling like it might fall apart any second. When he pulled up to the chain-link fence, his stomach sank. The place was a graveyard of forgotten things. Rows of rusted storage units sagged under years of neglect, weeds clawing through cracked pavement. A faded sign dangled by one screw, Mill Creek Storage, and "No trespassing." Ethan stepped inside, the air thick with the scent of mildew and old metal. He didn't know what he'd expected, but this wasn't it. Then he saw it. Near unit number 17, the dirt looked disturbed, freshly turned, unlike the packed earth everywhere else. His pulse quickened. Kneeling, he brushed away loose soil until his fingers hit something solid. Metal. He grabbed a rusted shovel leaning against a nearby unit and dug, his heart hammering. The deeper he went, the clearer the shape became. A small, dented safe, buried like a secret. Ethan wiped the sweat from his brow and stared at it. Whatever was inside, his uncle hadn't wanted it found, and that meant it was either worthless or dangerous. The safe and the secret. The safe was smaller than Ethan expected, about the size of a shoebox, but heavy, its surface pitted with rust and grime. He ran his fingers along the edges, feeling the cold metal bite into his skin. The lock was old, corroded shut by years of neglect. Whatever was inside, his uncle had meant for it to stay hidden. Ethan glanced around the empty storage lot, half expecting someone to jump out from behind the rows of decaying units. But there was nothing, just the wind whistling through broken hinges and the distant hum of the highway. He needed tools and help. Manny Rivera lived 3 trailers down from Ethan in the Maple Grove Trailer Park. A retired mechanic with grease permanently etched into his knuckles, Manny was the kind of guy who could fix anything: engines, radios, even the occasional broken heart. He was also the only person in Rustboro who didn't treat Ethan like a punchline. Ethan knocked on Manny's door just as the sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. The door swung open, revealing Manny in his usual uniform, a stained tank top, cargo shorts, and a toothpick dangling from his lips. "Ethan," Manny said, raising an eyebrow, "you look like you just saw a ghost." Ethan held up the safe. "I need you to open this." Manny's eyes flicked to the safe, then back to Ethan. He didn't ask questions, just stepped aside and said, "Bring it in." The inside of Manny's trailer was a cluttered sanctuary of spare parts and half-finished projects. A radio crackled softly in the background, playing a blues station from somewhere down south. Manny cleared space on his workbench and motioned for Ethan to set the safe down. "You know this thing's older than both of us combined, right?" Manny said, running a hand along the safe surface. "Can you open it or not?" Manny smirked. "I can open anything." He grabbed a set of lockpicks from a drawer, but after a few minutes of fiddling, he shook his head. "No good. Locks too rusted." Ethan's shoulders slumped. "Relax," Manny said, reaching for a drill. "There's more than one way into a safe." The whine of the drill filled the small space as Manny bored into the lock. Ethan watched, his fingers tapping nervously against his thigh. What if there was nothing inside? What if this was just another dead end, another disappointment? Then, with a final metallic groan, the safe's door creaked open. Manny let out a low whistle. Inside, nestled in a bed of yellowed newspaper, was a small velvet pouch. Ethan reached in and pulled it out, the fabric soft against his calloused hands. It was heavier than it looked. He loosened the drawstring and tilted the pouch. Diamonds spilled onto the workbench. Not just 1 or 2, dozens. They caught the dim light of Manny's workshop, scattering it into tiny, glittering fragments across the metal surface. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "Holy hell," Manny muttered, picking one up between his thumb and forefinger. "These are real." Ethan could only stare. They couldn't be. Things like this didn't happen to people like him. But there they were. Manny turned the diamond over, studying it. Uncut, raw. These ain't from no jewelry store. Ethan's mind raced. Where had his uncle gotten these? Why had he buried them? Then he noticed something else in the safe, a photograph tucked beneath the newspaper. He pulled it out. The image was faded, the edges curled with age, but the faces were clear enough. His Uncle Jack, younger than Ethan had ever known him, standing beside a woman with sharp features and dark hair. They were smiling, but there was something off about it, like they were sharing a secret the camera wasn't meant to catch. Ethan flipped the photo over. On the back, in his uncle's messy scrawl, was a single word. "Clara." Manny let out a slow breath. "This ain't just luck, hermano. This is trouble." Ethan didn't disagree. That night, Ethan lay awake in his trailer, the diamonds hidden beneath a loose floorboard near his bed. Lily was asleep in her room, oblivious of the fortune or the danger now sitting beneath their feet. He kept thinking about the photo, about Clara. Who was she, and what had she meant to his uncle? A noise outside made him freeze. A footstep, then another, too deliberate to be an animal. Ethan sat up slowly, his heart pounding. He crept to the window and peered through the blinds. The lot outside was empty, but as he turned away, something caught his eye, a flicker of movement near the tree line, a shadow slipping into the darkness. Someone had been there, watching. The shadows close in. The morning sun did little to ease the chill that had settled in Ethan's bones. He'd spent the rest of the night sitting at the kitchen table, a baseball bat within reach, listening for any sound outside. But there had been nothing, just the creak of the trailer settling and the distant hoot of an owl. Still, the feeling of being watched clung to him like a second skin. Lily shuffled into the kitchen, her bleary eyes narrowing at the sight of him still in yesterday's clothes. "You look like crap," she muttered, reaching for a box of cereal. Ethan rubbed his face. Did you hear anything last night? She paused, milk carton in hand. Like what? Footsteps. Outside. Lily rolled her eyes. Probably just a raccoon. She dumped cereal into a bowl, the clatter of it too loud in the small space. Or Dave coming to make sure you didn't steal any pencils from the school. Ethan forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. He wanted to believe it was nothing, but the diamonds hidden beneath the floorboards and the shadow by the trees told a different story. The pawn shop on 4th Street was the kind of place that didn't ask questions. Or at least, it wasn't supposed to. Ethan had picked the smallest diamond from the pouch, one no bigger than a pea, and wrapped it in an old receipt. He needed answers, and if anyone in Rustboro knew about uncut gems, it was Marty Finnegan, the grizzled owner of Rustboro Pawn and Loan. The bell above the door jingled as Ethan stepped inside. The shop smelled of dust and cigarette smoke, the shelves crammed with everything from guitars to wedding rings. Marty looked up from behind the counter, his thick glasses magnifying his bloodshot eyes. Ethan Cole, Marty said, dragging out the name like it was a joke he'd heard too many times. What did you do? Finally snap and steal something? Ethan ignored the jab. He pulled the diamond from his pocket and said on the glass counter, I need to know what this is worth. Marty picked it up, his smirk fading as he turned it under the light. His breath hitched, just slightly, but Ethan caught it. Where'd you get this? Marty's voice was suddenly too careful. Family heirloom. Marty's fingers tightened around the gem. Bullshit. Ethan stiffened. Just tell me what it's worth. Marty set the diamond down like it might burn him. Not a damn thing to you, kid. These ain't the kind of rocks you pawn. These are the kind that get people killed. The air in the shop thickened. Ethan reached for the diamond, but Marty grabbed his wrist. Listen to me, Marty hissed, his voice low. You take this back to wherever you found it, and you forget you ever saw it. Because if the wrong people know you've got it, you're already dead. Ethan yanked his arm free. What people? Marty didn't answer, just shook his head, his face pale. Get out of my shop, Ethan, and don't come back. The black SUV appeared an hour later. Ethan was walking home, his mind racing, when the engine's growl made him turn. The SUV crawled along the street behind him, windows tinted, keeping pace. His pulse spiked. He ducked into an alley, cutting through backyards and over fences until his lungs burned. When he finally dared to look back, the SUV was gone, but the message was clear. They knew. Lily was waiting on the trailer steps when he got home, her arms crossed. Where the hell have you been? Ethan hesitated. He wanted to protect her, but the SUV changed things. We need to talk. Inside, he showed her the diamonds. Her eyes widened, but not with wonder, with fear. Are you stupid? She snapped. You just brought stolen gems into our house? They're not stolen, Ethan said, but the words sounded weak even to him. Lily grabbed her phone. I'm calling the police. Ethan snatched it from her hand. No, not until we know what we're dealing with. They stared at each other, the silence between them heavy. Then Lily did something she hadn't done in years. She hugged him, her grip tight. We're in trouble, aren't we? She whispered. Ethan held her close. Yeah. That night, as Ethan lay in bed, a sound cut through the dark, the crunch of gravel underfoot. He was at the window in an instant. The figure stood at the edge of the lot, half hidden by shadows, watching, waiting. And this time, they weren't alone. The truth about Uncle Jack. Ethan didn't sleep. He spent the night watching the figures from his window, their silhouettes shifting in the moonlight, like ghosts testing the boundaries of his property. By dawn, they were gone, but their presence lingered like a stain. Lily found him at the kitchen table, poring over old newspapers he dug out from the storage unit. His hand shook slightly as he smoothed out a yellowed clipping from a Cleveland Herald, dated 30 years ago. $2 million in gems stolen in daring heist. The grainy photo showed a shattered jewelry store display case, but it was the caption that made Ethan's blood run cold. Authorities suspect the work of Jack the Fox, a notorious thief linked to high-profile robberies across the Midwest. Lily leaned over his shoulder, her breath warm against his neck. No way. Ethan pointed to another article, A police sketch of a man with sharp features and a familiar smirk. Even with the stylized rendering, there was no mistaking his uncle. Jack the Fox, Lily whispered. Uncle Jack was a criminal? Ethan's fingers traced the newspaper's edge. He remembered Jack as the quiet uncle who showed up at family reunions with expensive whiskey and no explanation, the one who'd ruffled Ethan's hair and slipped him $20 bills when no one was looking. A knock at the door made them both jump. Ethan shoved the newspapers under the table as Lily crept to the window. "It's a woman," she hissed. Silver hair. Fancy coat. The name flashed in Ethan's mind before he even opened the door. Clara. The woman on his porch was elegance personified. A tailor wool coat, leather gloves, and a smile that didn't reach her ice-blue eyes. "Ethan Cole," she said, extending a hand. "I'm Clara Vasso. Your uncle spoke of you often." Ethan didn't take her hand. Did he? Clara's smile tightened. She glanced past him to where Lily stood, arms crossed. "May I come in? I believe we have mutual interests to discuss." The trailer felt smaller with Clara inside. She perched on the edge of their worn couch like it might contaminate her, her gaze flickering to the loose floorboard near Ethan's bedroom, the one hiding the diamonds. "I'll cut to the chase," Clara said, pulling off her gloves. "Those gems you found belong to me." Lily snorted. "Yeah, okay." Clara's eyes hardened. 30 years ago, your uncle stole them from my family. We've been looking for them ever since." Ethan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Funny, the papers say Jack the Fox stole them from a jewelry store." A muscle twitched in Clara's jaw. The store was a front. Those diamonds were ours. She reached into her coat and slid a photo across the table. The same one from the safe, Jack and Clara smiling. "Your uncle and I were partners until he betrayed me." Ethan studied the photo. Up close, he could see the tension in Jack's posture, the way Clara's fingers dug into his arm. This wasn't a lover's snapshot. It was a threat. "Why bury them?" Lily asked. "Why not sell them?" Clara's polished nails tapped the table. "Because Jack was a sentimental fool. He thought hiding them would keep me from finding him." She smiled, all teeth. "Turns out, all I needed was to wait for him to die." The trailer's walls seemed to press closer. Ethan forced his voice steady. "What do you want?" Clara stood, smoothing her coat. "The diamonds. By tonight, or I stop asking nicely." After she left, Ethan checked the floorboard. The diamonds were still there. But as he turned to reassure Lily, he noticed something outside. The black SUV was back. And this time it wasn't alone. A dangerous bargain. The black SUV idled at the edge of the trailer park, like a predator sizing up its prey. Through the thin curtains, Ethan counted 3 figures inside. Shadows with no faces, no identities, just the unmistakable posture of men who were used to violence. Lily pressed her back against the wall beside the window, her breathing shallow. "We should call the police." Ethan shook his head. "And tell them what?" "That a well-dressed woman threatened us over stolen diamonds my dead uncle left me." He ran a hand through his hair, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "They'd either laugh or arrest us." The engine of the SUV rumbled, then slowly faded as the vehicle pulled away. But the relief was temporary. Clara had given them until tonight. That left them with hours to figure out how to survive this. Ethan turned to Lily. "Pack a bag. Essentials only." Her eyes widened. "We're running." "Not yet," Ethan said. "But we need to be ready." Manny's trailer smelled of motor oil and strong coffee. When Ethan showed him the newspaper clippings about Jack the Fox, Manny let out a low whistle and poured them both a shot of whiskey. "So your uncle was a legend," Manny said, downing his drink in one gulp. "Jack the Fox pulled jobs all over the Midwest. Never left a trace. Never got caught." Ethan stared at his untouched glass. "Until he stole from the wrong people." Manny nodded grimly. "The Vassos. Nasty bunch out of Cleveland. Rumor has it they ran gems through that jewelry store he hit." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "Clara's the widow of Sal Vasso, and she's not the type to forgive a debt." Ethan's stomach twisted. He'd known the diamonds were trouble, But this was worse than he'd imagined. He pulled out the velvet pouch and spilled the gems onto Manny's workbench. The stones glittered under the dim light, beautiful and deadly. Manny's breath caught. Dios mio. We can't keep them, Ethan said. But we can't just hand them over either. Clara won't let us walk away knowing what we know. Manny picked up a diamond, rolling it between his fingers. So what's the plan? Ethan hesitated. It was reckless, maybe suicidal, but it was the only shot they had. We set a trap. The storage lot was eerily quiet under the afternoon sun. Ethan stood near unit number 17, the same spot where he dug up the safe, and tried to steady his nerves. Manny was hidden nearby with a crowbar and a promise to intervene if things went south. Lily was supposed to be safe at a friend's house, though the way she glared at him before leaving told him she had no intention of staying put. Clara arrived right on time, stepping out a sleek sedan in a tailored pantsuit that looked out of place amid the rust and weeds. Two men flanked her, muscle, with cold eyes and hands that never strayed far from their jackets. "You're smarter than you look," Clara said, her lips curving into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I assume you have my property?" Ethan held up the velvet pouch. "Right here." One of the men stepped forward, but Clara held up a hand. "Aha, let's not be hasty." She tilted her head, studying Ethan. "How do I know those are all of them?" "You don't," Ethan said. "But I do." Clara's smile faded. "What do you want?" "Safe passage," Ethan said. "You take the diamonds, and you leave me and my daughter alone." For a long moment, Clara said nothing. Then she laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Oh, Ethan, you really think it's that simple?" She took a step closer, her perfume cloying in the thick air. "Your uncle stole from me, humiliated me, and now you expect me to just let you walk away?" Ethan's grip tightened on the pouch. "I'm giving them back. That's more than Jack ever did." Claire's expression hardened. "Yes, but he's dead, and you're not." The signal was subtle, just a slight nod of her head, but the two men moved instantly. Ethan barely had time to react before one of them grabbed his arm, twisting it behind his back. The pouch fell to the ground, spilling diamonds across the dirt. Clara knelt, picking one up with delicate fingers. "You should have taken the deal I offered." Then the world exploded in fire. The first gunshot rang out like a crack of thunder, sending everyone diving for cover. Ethan hit the ground hard, his ears ringing. More shots followed, but they weren't coming from Clara's men. "Manny." Ethan rolled behind a stack of rusted barrels as bullets pinged off metal. Clara shouted something to her men, but the words were lost in the chaos. One of her bodyguards dropped, clutching his leg. The other dragged Clara toward the car, shielding her with his body. Ethan didn't wait to see if they'd make it. He scrambled for the pouch, scooping up as many diamonds as he could before sprinting toward the lot's back fence. Manny emerged from behind a storage unit, his face pale but determined. "Go. I'll hold them off." Ethan hesitated. "Manny." "Damn it, Ethan. Go." Another shot. Manny grunted, stumbling back as blood bloomed across his shoulder. Ethan's blood turned to ice. Then he ran. Blood and broken promises. Ethan's lungs burned as he sprinted to the overgrown field behind the storage lot. The velvet pouch clutched so tightly in his fist that the diamonds dug into his palm. The gunshots had stopped, but the silence was worse. It meant Clara's men weren't chasing him, because they went after Manny instead. The thought made him stumble. He should have turned back, should have helped. But Manny's last words echoed in his skull. "Damn it, Ethan. Go." So he ran. Lily wasn't at her friend's house. Ethan knew at the moment he saw the empty driveway, the darkened windows. His stomach twisted as he pulled out his phone, fingers shaking as he dialed her number. 1 ring. 2. Pick up, pick up. "Dad." Lily's voice was barely a whisper, but it sent a wave of relief through him, so strong his knees nearly buckled. "Where are you?" he demanded. "The storage lot." Ethan's blood turned to ice. "What?" "I saw you leave with the diamonds. I thought you were giving up." Her voice cracked. "I followed you." The world tilted. Ethan gripped the phone so hard the plastic creaked. Lily, listen to me. Get out of there. Now. A pause. Then, in a voice so small it shattered him, I can't. The line went dead. Ethan drove like a man possessed, his truck fishtailing onto the gravel road, leading back to the lot. The sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of blood and bruise. He didn't have a plan, didn't have a weapon. All he had was a pouch of diamonds and the desperate, clawing fear that he was already too late. The storage lot gates came into view, swung wide open. Ethan killed the headlights and rolled to a stop, his heart hammering against his ribs. Silence. Then, from somewhere deep in the maze of units, a scream. Lily. Ethan was moving before he could think, feet pounding against cracked pavement. The sound led him to unit number 17, where the door stood slightly ajar. He burst inside. The scene hit him like a punch to the gut. Lily sat slumped in a metal chair, her wrists bound with zip ties. A bruise darkened her cheek, and her eyes were wide with terror. Behind her stood one of Clara's men, the one who hadn't been shot, his gun pressed to Lily's temple. Clara stood in the center of the room, cradling her left arm. Blood seeped through her sleeve where a bullet had grazed her. When she saw Ethan, her lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her cold eyes. "Took you long enough," she said. Ethan's gaze locked onto Lily. "Are you hurt?" Lily shook her head, tears streaking her dirt-smudged face. "Dad, I'm sorry." "Quiet," Clara snapped. She held out her uninjured hand. "The diamonds, Ethan. All of them." Ethan hesitated. If he handed them over, they were dead. If he didn't, the man pressed a gun harder against Lily's head. She whimpered. Ethan pulled the pouch from his pocket and tossed it at Clara's feet. "Take them." Clara picked it up, weighing it in her palm. Then she sighed. "You really are your uncle's nephew." She nodded to her man. "Kill them." Time slowed. Lily screamed. Ethan lunged. The gunshot was deafening in a confined space. But it wasn't Lily who fell. Clara's man crumpled, a dark stain spreading across his chest. Clara whirled, her perfect hair coming undone as a unit's door burst open. Manny stood in the doorway, one arm hanging useless at his side, the other gripping a smoking pistol. Blood soaked his shirt. His face was pale as death, but he was alive. "Sorry I'm late," he rasped. Clara moved like lightning, snatching the fallen man's gun and leveling at Manny. Ethan didn't think. He threw himself at Clara just as she pulled the trigger. The shot went wide, shattering a light bulb overhead in a rain of glass. They hit the ground hard, Ethan grappling for the weapon as Clara clawed at his face. Somewhere in the chaos, Manny cut Lily free. Clara twisted beneath him, her nails drawing blood from his cheek. "You'll die for this," she hissed. Ethan head-butted her. Clara went limp, her eyes rolling back. For a moment, there was only the sound of ragged breathing. Then Lily was in his arms, sobbing into his shoulder. Manny leaned against the wall, pressing a hand to his bleeding shoulder. "We need to go," Manny gasped, "before she wakes up." Ethan looked down at Clara's unconscious form, then at the velvet pouch lying a few feet away. The diamonds glinted in the dim light, beautiful and cursed. He picked them up and ran. The devil's bargain. Rain sheeted down in icy curtains as Ethan guided the battered truck down back roads, the headlights cutting through the darkness like a knife. Lily huddled in the passenger seat, her arms wrapped around herself, while Manny slumped in the back, his breathing ragged. The makeshift bandage on his shoulder was already soaked through with blood. Ethan's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Every shadow looked like Clara's man. Every set of headlights in the rear view made his stomach twist. "We need a hospital," Lily whispered, glancing back at Manny. "No hospitals," Manny gritted out. "They'll be watching." Ethan knew he was right. Clara had resources. Cops on payroll, eyes everywhere. One wrong move, and they were dead. The truck hit a pothole, jostling them all. Manny groaned. "Then what do we do?" Lily's voice cracked. Ethan exhaled slowly. There was only one person left who might help. Someone even Clara feared. "We call the devil." The payphone outside the abandoned gas station stank of urine and rust. Ethan fed at quarters with shaking hands, dialing a number he'd memorized from his uncle's old address book. 2 rings, then a voice like gravel sliding down a tin roof. "Who's this?" Ethan swallowed. "Ethan Cole, Jack's nephew." A pause, then a low chuckle. "Well, I'll be damned. Jackie's boy." The voice hardened. "You got a death wish, kid? Calling me?" "I have the diamonds," Ethan said, "and Clara Vassal wants me dead." Another pause, longer this time. When the man spoke again, the amusement was gone. "Where are you?" The warehouse on the outskirts of Cleveland looked like it hadn't been used in decades. Broken windows, peeling paint. But the armed men at the door were very much alive and very alert. One of them patted Ethan down roughly before shoving him inside. Lily clung to his arm, her nails digging into his skin. Manny limped behind them, his face gray with pain. The interior was a different world. Plush carpets, expensive art, a mahogany desk lit by a single lamp. Behind it sat a man in his 60s, his silver hair slicked back, a cigar smoldering between his fingers. Vincenzo Vinny Scaletta, the man even the Vassals answered to. Vinny leaned back in his chair, studying them like specimens under glass. "So," he said, blowing smoke into the air, "you're the dumbass who pissed off Clara Vassal." Ethan set the velvet pouch on the desk. "I just want my family safe." Vinny didn't touch the diamonds, just stared at them, his expression unreadable. "Jackie stole these 30 years ago. Started a war that got a lot of people killed." His cold eyes flicked to Ethan. "And now you waltz in here expecting what? Protection?" "Yes." Vinny laughed, a harsh, barking sound. He stood, circling the desk until he was inches from Ethan. Up close, he smelled like expensive cologne and gun oil. "Here's how this works, kid. You give me the diamonds. I give Clara a call. She backs off." He tilted his head, but favors costs. Ethan's mouth went dry. "How much?" Vinny's smile sent a chill down his spine. "Not money." He reached out, tapping Lily's shoulder. Her. Lily recoiled. Ethan stepped between them, his blood roaring in his ears. "No." Vinny shrugged. "Then enjoy Clara's hospitality." He turned away. "Get him out of here." The guards moved forward. Ethan's mind raced. There had to be another way. Then he remembered the photo in the safe, the name on the back. "Clara's lying," he blurted. Vinny paused. "About what?" "The diamonds. They weren't just stolen from the Vassals." Ethan met Vinny's gaze. "They were stolen from you." Silence. Vinny's cigar hovered halfway to his lips. "Say that again." Ethan pressed on, gambling everything. "Jack and Clara were working together. They double-crossed you. The heist at the jewelry store, that was your shipment." He nodded to the diamonds. "And these are the proof." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Vinny threw back his head and laughed, a deep, rolling sound that filled the warehouse. "Oh, this is rich," he wheezed, wiping his eyes. "Clara played me. All these years." His laughter died as suddenly as it started. He snapped his fingers. One of his men handed him a phone. Vinny dialed, his eyes locked on Ethan. When Clara answered, his voice was deceptively light. "Clara, darling, we need to talk." A pause. Then Clara's voice, tinny through the speaker. "About what?" Vinny's smile turned vicious. "About how you're going to beg before I kill you." He hung up. Then he turned to Ethan and clapped him on the shoulder like an old friend. "Congratulations, kid. You just bought yourself a war. The Fox's revenge." The safe house smelled of stale cigarettes and gun oil. Ethan sat by the boarded-up window, peering through a crack at the rain-slicked streets below. 2 of Vinny's men patrolled the sidewalk, their collars turned up against the drizzle. Lily slept fitfully on a cot in the corner, her face still bruised from Clara's men. Manny lay on the couch, his shoulder freshly stitched by Vinny's personal doctor, a man who asked no questions and charged triple. Vinny had left an hour ago with the diamonds and a promise. "Stay put. I'll handle Clara." Ethan didn't trust him. A floorboard creaked. Manny was awake, watching him through half-lidded eyes. "You did the right thing," he murmured. Did I? Ethan rubbed his face. He'd just unleashed a mob war to save their lives. How many would die because of that choice? Manny struggled to sit up, wincing. Jack would have. Jack's dead. Ethan snapped, then immediately regretted it when Lily stirred. He lowered his voice. And whatever game he was playing got us here. Manny studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached into his boot and pulled out a small, folded photograph. You should see this. Ethan unfolded it. Another picture of Jack and Clara, but this one was different. They stood in front of a church. Jack in a suit, Clara in a white dress. A wedding photo. On the back, in Jack's handwriting. If you're reading this, I'm gone. The truth is in unit number 12. Ethan's blood ran cold. Where did you get this? Manny looked away. Found it in the safe after you left. Figured you had enough to deal with. Ethan nearly strangled him. Instead, he grabbed his jacket. Whoa! Where the hell are you going? Manny hissed. Finishing this. The storage lot was a war zone. Vinny's men had hit it hard. Smashed locks, broken doors, the acrid tang of gasoline in the air. Unit number 17 was a charred skeleton, but unit number 12, tucked in the far corner, stood untouched. Ethan picked the lock with shaking hands. Inside was no treasure, no diamonds, just a single metal filing cabinet. Its drawers rusted shut. It took 3 kicks to wrench it open. Files, dozens of them, each labeled with a date, a name, and a single word, evidence. Ethan pulled one at random. Inside were photos, grainy surveillance shots of Clara meeting with men in suits, handing off envelopes, loading crates into trucks. But it was the documents that made his stomach drop. Shipping manifests, bank records, witness statements. Jack hadn't just stolen from Clara. He'd been building a case against her. A noise behind him, the crunch of broken glass. Ethan turned slowly. Clara stood in the doorway, a gun in her hand. Her perfect hair was disheveled, her designer coat splattered with mud or blood. She smiled. Hello, Ethan. The last fox. The gun in Clara's hand didn't waver. Moonlight bled to the broken roof of the storage unit, painting jagged stripes across her face. She looked older up close. Fine lines around her eyes, lips thinned by decades of ruthless decisions. Ethan slowly raised his hands, the file still clutched in one fist. You killed him. Clara's smile was knife-sharp. Jack got sentimental. Started thinking he could outsmart me. She stepped closer, her heels clicking against the concrete. Just like you. The files burned in Ethan's grip. Shipping manifests. Bank transfers. Proof that Clara had been laundering money for the Bratva through fake jewelry stores. Jack hadn't just stolen those diamonds. He'd stolen her entire operation. You married him to keep him quiet, Ethan said. Clara's finger tightened on the trigger. And it worked for 20 years. Her gaze flicked to the files. But Jackie always was a pack rat. A shadow moved behind her. Ethan didn't let his eyes stray. Vinny knows the truth now. You're finished. Clara laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Vinny's dead. His men are scattering like roaches. She tilted her head, just like you will, if you hand over those files. The shadow solidified. Lily, gripping a rusted pipe, her face pale but determined. Ethan had one chance. He lunged left just as Lily swung. The pipe connected with Clara's wrist. The gun went off, the bullet ricocheting off metal shelves. Clara snarled, backhanding Lily hard enough to send her sprawling. Ethan tackled Clara to the ground. They rolled, grappling for the gun. Her nails raked his face. He slammed her wrist against the concrete once, twice. The gun skittered away. Clara twisted like a snake, kneeing him in the gut. Ethan gasped, the pain blinding. She scrambled for the weapon. Lily was faster. The gun looked too big in her small hands, but her grip was steady. She pointed it at Clara's chest, her voice trembling but clear. Don't move. Clara froze, her eyes calculating. You won't shoot me, little girl. Lily's finger tightened on the trigger. Try me. Sirens wailed in the distance. Ethan hauled Clara to her feet. wrenching her arms behind her back with zip tie from his pocket. She spat curses, her perfect facade crumbling. Lily kept the gun trained on her. Who called the cops? I did, Manny said from the doorway, leaning heavily against the frame. His shoulder was bleeding again, his face ashen. Figured someone should. Clara laughed bitterly. You think this ends with me in handcuffs? You're even stupider than your uncle. Ethan yanked the tie tighter. No, but it ends with these files in an FBI evidence locker. For the first time, real fear flickered in Clara's eyes. The sirens grew louder. 3 days later, Ethan stood on the steps of the federal courthouse, squinting in the sunlight. The headline said it all. Mob wife turned crime boss arrested in decades-old conspiracy. Lily nudged him, holding out a coffee. You look like hell. He took it, wincing as the movement pulled at his stitches. Feel like it too. Manny limped up beside them, his arm in a sling. Heard Vinny's boys are tearing each other apart over who gets Clara's territory. He grinned. Messy business. Ethan shook his head. It wasn't over. Not really. Men like Vinny didn't forget. But for now, they were safe. Lily pulled something from her pocket. A single diamond, glinting in the sunlight. The last one. What do we do with it? Ethan thought of Jack, the uncle he'd never really known. The man who died trying to make things right. He took the diamond and tossed it into the courthouse fountain. Let it go. New beginnings. The autumn leaves swirled across the pavement outside Cole's auto repair as Ethan wiped grease from his hands onto a rag. The sign above the garage, freshly painted in bold blue letters, caught the morning sun just right. It had been 6 months since Clara's arrest. 6 months since he'd tossed that last diamond into the fountain. Inside the shop, Lily balanced on a creeper, sliding beneath a '68 Mustang with a wrench in hand. Manny sat nearby on an upturned crate, sipping coffee and calling out instructions in between exaggerated sighs about kids these days. Dad. Lily's voice echoed from under the car. The transmission fluid looks like tar. When was the last time this thing was serviced? Ethan chuckled. Probably around the time Manny was your age. Manny flipped him off good-naturedly. The bell above the shop door jingled. A man in a cheap suit stepped inside, holding an envelope. Ethan Cole? The room went still. Ethan's muscles tense, his mind flashing to black SUVs and gunmetal glints. But the man just held out the envelope. From the U.S. Marshals. Witness protection paperwork. Ethan took it slowly. We didn't. Not for you. The man nodded toward Lily. For her. Given your cooperation with the case against Clara Vasso, the government's offering relocation. New identity. Fresh start. Lily crawled out from under the car, her face smudged with oil. No way. Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but the marshal cut him off. The Vassos aren't done. Even with Clara in prison, there are people who want revenge. This is your daughter's best chance. The envelope burned in Ethan's hands. That night, Ethan sat on the porch of their new house, a small but sturdy place on the edge of town, bought with the reward money from the recovered diamonds. Lily joined him, 2 mugs of hot chocolate in hand. You're not sending me away, she said, handing him a mug. Ethan stared into the steam. It's not about what I want. It's about what keeps you safe. Lily snorted. Like witness protection is safe. Please. Those guys lose people all the time. She took a sip, then grinned. Besides, who'd keep Manny out of trouble? Through the window, they could see Manny at the kitchen table, laughing too loud at some old Western on TV. His recovery had been slow, but the doctor said he'd regain full use of his arm. Eventually, Ethan exhaled, the weight of the last few months settling in his bones. Lily. She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder like she hadn't done since she was little. We're family, Dad. We stay together. The marshal's envelope sat unopened on the coffee table inside. The next morning, Ethan found a package on the shop's doorstep. No return address. Inside was a vintage radio, the same model Jack had taught him to fix when he was a kid, and a note in familiar handwriting. Every fox needs a den. Jay. Ethan turned the radio over in his hands. Maybe some secrets were meant to stay buried. Maybe some ghosts were meant to be left alone. Or maybe, just maybe, they'd earned a little peace. If this story reminded you that family is worth fighting for, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of courage against all odds. And remember, sometimes the greatest treasures aren't diamonds. They're the people who stand beside you when the world tries to tear you down.